At least I think. Did we? There's some hella latency here. Okay, I think we're now live, as in right now. Okay, yep, there's the notification. I'm very confused at the moment. Sorry, I'm playing with this a little bit. Okay, I think we're now. Wow, that's some latency. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Average Intelligence Podcast. I went through a bit of a preamble there, but you didn't see it. Therefore, we will start again, which is good because I was rambling. You may notice I'm by myself tonight, and if the title didn't give it away, it's another solo special. Tonight, we're talking about the real problems with Donald Trump, at least as far as I can see them. Um, thanks, Justin. You can see me. And I'm sorry, I tweaked the latency settings so there's more of a delay. So if you do feel like commenting, please put your entire thought in the comment so that we don't have to go back and forth because there's probably a solid minute or more delay. That being said, so I'm going to be talking about the problems with Donald Trump as I see them. Another disclaimer, as if the chimp in the suit wasn't a big enough indicator. I'm an idiot. I'm not an expert. It's the Average Intelligence Podcast. Just me and normally my co-host. We just see the world and talk about it. That's the whole point. This podcast tonight is brought to you by Visor.ai and RTA Media, who can help you start your podcast today. So, just to get started, today things are, I'll put it nicely, they're interesting. But if you're a student of history, in many ways, we've actually been here before. Um, as Mr. Miyagi would say, different but same. Trump is once again dominating our headlines on a, well, I was going to say almost daily basis, but pretty much a daily basis, multiple times a day, actually, in the case of today. The news in the morning was different than the news in the afternoon. I even had to tweak my own outline because things were changing so quickly. But very few people, in my opinion, are talking about the real issues with Trump. So, again, that's why I've come on here tonight to piss off both sides with a smile on my face. I'm going to be examining a few different things and pointing out the issues that I see with Trump's latest administration. Hopefully, at the end of this, like I said, most of you will be mad. You'll probably click off, but I hope you stay till the end. And hopefully, I'll at least have made you think a little bit, except for you, Justin. I know you'll stick it out. And stay tuned for the end for what I believe is the biggest problem with Trump's current administration. So, one of the problems that the Trump administration currently has is they seem completely unaware or they're purposefully ignoring the precedent being set, which is hilarious considering that one of the things they always said during the previous Biden administration is, well, what kind of precedent does this set? And I agreed with a great number of things. I also think the same for this administration. And here's just a few thoughts. For a guy who constantly craps on, and often justifiably, to be fair, the previous administration, Trump seems oddly unaware, or he's putting his head in the sand of precedents that his current administration's actions are setting. Again, probably on a daily basis. You may not have caught it, but President Obama was recently interviewed. I cannot remember for the life of me where it was because I saw it on TikTok. But I know it was recent because it was referencing fairly recent things with Trump. But he recently pointed out that the right, like the right side of the aisle, would have thrown a conniption fit if during his presidency had he banned Fox News from White House events. And I concur. The right would have absolutely thrown a conniption fit, and hopefully anyone who is pro First Amendment would have thrown a conniption fit. Now, here's the thing, not to blow this out of proportion. The Trump administration did not ban the Atlantic from reporting on it. They simply removed them from the list of people or list of media that were included in certain White House events. However, that does send a message that could very easily be taken a certain kind of way. And I honestly believe that's the message the Trump administration was trying to send. So I will criticize it. Like I said, this was a reference. Oh, I'm sorry, not the Atlantic. It was the Associated Press. Did you hear that Trump was, quote, off-puttingly nice to Kamala when he called her after he won? No, I did not hear that, but that does not surprise me one bit. Like I said, Obama was referencing the Trump administration banning the Associated Press from such events after refusing to refer to the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, it is still the Gulf of Mexico. It was the Gulf of Mexico. It will always be the Gulf of Mexico. Ban me from the White House events, Trump. Wasn't invited anyway. The Associated Press still referred to the Gulf of Mexico instead of the Gulf of America, which is incredibly stupid. And I cannot believe that brain cells were wasted on the conversations that came after that. Now, I did learn that a judge ordered that ban lifted. Obama is correct in pointing out the double standard. So I agree with President Obama there. There's a great number of things that had Obama done certain things, he would have been appropriately chastised for those things. But the problem here is that if Trump did this sort of thing and got away with it and was able to make it stick, what's to stop a new Democrat administration from doing the same thing to more conservative leading media outlets, which is also funny because if that were to happen, like let's say hypothetically that Trump kept the Associated Press banned from White House briefings and events, right? I don't know. Are you? People can see you. This is very unprofessional. This is extremely unprofessional. No. You're like Trump. You don't know how to be presidential. Haley says, "Thank God I'm not the only one who thinks the Gulf of America is stupid." It is stupid. It's so stupid. I people honestly ask me, why is it called the Gulf of Mexico? Because here's the Gulf, Mexico, right there. Yes, it does touch the coast of the United States. It touches more of Mexico's coast. Sorry, not sorry. But so let's say that Trump was able to keep the Associated Press out of these events, and he made it stick. And then insert Democrat politician here as president. And that person then banned Fox News from White House press events. They would, oh my God, they would they would be crying for a year straight, nonstop, every day talking about, well, we would report it, but the president violated our First Amendment rights to report. And they would, yeah. Yeah, remember that people got upset that Obama wore a tan suit? God, those were simpler times. I agree, but also that suit was ugly as fuck. I'm not gonna lie. I think he deserved the hate for that one because it was so icky. But moving on. But to shoot, but to put the shoe on the other foot for a moment, I want to take a moment to thank Senator Cory Booker for proving my point about the filibuster. Bet you're happy the Democrats didn't get rid of that one, aren't you? Hypocrisy knows no party lines or bounds when it comes to government. So, yeah, you're just obnoxious tonight. Okay, well, at least stay below the camera. You'll get pets, just stay below the camera. The same thing can be said for the staggering amount of executive orders that Trump has signed in the first few months of his new presidential term. As of yesterday, Trump has signed 116 executive orders since he was inaugurated in January. He's close to Biden's 4 year total of 162. While it does remain to be seen how many Trump will sign in his second term, though, it's worth noting that compared to other presidents, Trump's overall number is actually somewhat average, historically speaking. Special shout out to President Harrison for signing a grand total of 0 executive orders. But I think pneumonia gets most of the credit for that one, and not so much Harrison's belief in delegation of power, separation of powers. Too soon? Scoreboard. So the next controversy that sort of illustrates my point when it comes to Trump was Signalgate. Oh, Signalgate. This still goes in the hypocrisy column, by the way. Uh, this is probably the best example of hypocrisy of this current administration. Uh, Before I dig into this, I want to be crystal clear on two things. Firstly, I do believe that what Hillary Clinton did was wrong and that she should have been punished for it. Secondly, when when your cabinet officials discuss any sort of military operation in any way over an application that I can download onto my iPhone, you officially have no more legs to stand on. So, for those of you who don't know, Signalgate is referring to something that happened fairly recently. If you're not familiar, there is an encrypted messaging app, and I use air quotes encrypted because it is encrypted, but it's not deemed secure enough to be used for top secret information. Rightfully so. Like I said, if the application can be downloaded onto any mobile device, it's not good enough. It's just not. All right. WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted as well, but I don't think you want national security information being discussed via WhatsApp. Certainly not iMessage. But so what happened was there was a group of cabinet officials, including National Security Advisor Mike Walls and even Vice President J.D. Vance. I believe Tulsi Gabbard was in there too, and Pete Hegseth was in there in the group, and other people, all involved in the planning and discussions of sorry, Justin, I'll get to your question in a moment. Discussion of some plans to attack the Houthis in Yemen, some military strikes, right? So Mike Walls, who again is the National Security Advisor, I'm going to repeat that, the National Security Advisor, national meaning country, security meaning safety, security, secure advisor to the president of the United States accidentally added a journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic, into a group chat discussing, aspects of these plans. Now, to be fair, in this, signal thread, I understand the convenience of a messaging app like that. I get it, but there are channels which top secret information can be discussed in an intra-government network, and we don't know because it hasn't been released, but they've said that the finer details were discussed in those channels, and this was kind of a little bit more convenient and expedient way to discuss certain aspects of it. The fact that you can add someone accidentally to this shows that it's not a viable option for national security reasons, just right out of the gate. And to Jeffrey's credit, now I'm going to be fair here. Jeffrey Goldberg is like historically a Trump hound dog. Anything he can find to get on Trump and his administration, he will find. It's not like he went digging for this, though. He was added to the group chat. And also, to his credit, he didn't report on anything until after the operation was complete, partially because he didn't want to jeopardize the mission, and secondly, because for the bulk of time, I'm given to understand that he thought this was some kind of hoax or a prank or something. But when he saw the attacks happening in Yemen, he was pretty much like, "Yep, this is legit," and then he reported on it afterward. Yeah, so just I know they're not going to stop attacking Hillary Clinton, and in a vacuum, I don't think they should. But first of all, it's it's been like 10 years ish. Get over it. I agree it was BS, but nothing was done. Let's move on. Secondly, um, you guys just did kind of sort of the same. I mean, again, Miyagi different, but same. It's you can't. Okay, it's like the kid who uses AI to write his papers in school accusing somebody else of cheating, right? Like it kind of in this context, like it matters that they cheated, but it kind of matters a lot less because y- you cheated too, just in a different way, or like you screwed up too in a different way. It's kind of the pot calling the kettle black here at this point. So, and it was especially funny when Hegseth was asked about it, and he was like, "Deny, deny, deny," and that the Atlantic is a garbage, piece. Which I mean, you can have your opinions about the Atlantic, but everything they reported was factually right, and there was a hearing where they corroborated basically everything under oath. So that story at least was legit. So I did think it was quite funny watching Pete Hegseth just like deny, 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 and then the reports came and that was like, no, actually, that's exactly what was said. And to answer your question, Justin, I don't know how many of those executive orders were straight up illegal, but I would imagine quite a few of them. And we'll dig into that a little bit more because again, I can't really deep dive or we'll be here for 6 hours. And I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. But if you want me to, I will. So let me know in the comments if you want me to do that. Let's see. Any other? I mean, there's hypocrisy all around, right? Like, I mean, it's and it changes by the day, right? So unless you if you bring up another hypocritical thing in the comments, I'll jump back to it. But now we're going to go on to uh, the Trump administration's supposed love of free speech. And wow, I should have just said Miyagi explains Trump because all this is pretty much different but same. So I guess this is somewhat hypocritical, but I called this section compelled speech. All right. So, yeah, honestly, this one does get a little dicey. I don't want to say I'm being nitpicky because I believe I have a very valid point. But you may well have a different opinion on this, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. Just hear me out, and then we can hash this out. So the Trump administration has effectively banned the use of preferred pronouns in government operations and documents, and they've done this mandate where they're in the United States, there are only two genders. There's only two, but didn't really explain enforcement or because again they can only really do that in the context of the federal government, and it gets real dicey with the First Amendment. But anyway, I'll explain. So, and it does seem that some of these things have been rolled back by judges because I saw a couple articles. Oh yeah, Justin, yeah, their attitude toward free speech in general tends to be hypocritical, and I'll circle back around to that. Politically, I mean, free speech is not hypocritical so long as you actually believe in free speech, so long as you believe in free speech and just not speech that you like. But because I read a couple articles about how now, like they've rolled back some uses in military, and like I guess some people in the government were told they couldn't have their preferred pronouns and signature lines of emails. Like it's blah. But anyway, so going back to the banning of use of preferred pronouns and alternative gender identities, this kind of stuff, like I honestly don't know if that would fall under compelled speech, but it certainly smells like it. Um, you could compare Justin, you might be a little bit more familiar with this. It was a proposed bill. I don't think no, it didn't pass. This is going back to 2016, so bear with me. But Bill C-16, which would have in Canada, this is a Canadian proposed bill, which that piece of legislation, as I understand it, would have mandated that one would have to use a person's preferred pronouns. And there was a big and I believe rightfully so. There was a big to do about it because that clearly falls under compelled speech because that is literally the government telling you what you have to say, which to me is under the free speech umbrella because one of the worst things, pretty much the only thing I can think of that's worse than being told I can't say something is that I have to say something, and that just automatically makes me not want to say it, no matter what it is. Um, but the irony of this is that's pretty much a complete reversal on the argument that many people on the right make against the use of preferred pronouns because they say, "Well, you can't make me use your pronouns," and then they in question turn around and say, "Well, you can't use your preferred pronouns." And okay, on the trans issue, I'll just be brutally honest, so I can throw my biases out there and maybe somebody can correct me, but I honestly don't know where I stand on it. On the one hand, I think a lot of the stuff is, I'll be honest, it's kind of silly and flies in the face of established and obvious mammalian biology, which I believe that trumps all because as much as I would like to change certain things genetically, I can't because biology trumps all, pun intended. But at the same time, I'm a free speech absolutist, but free speech stops at compulsion of another person, meaning it's kind of the whole like I can wave my hand as far and as fast as I want until it hits your face. That's the line for me. So, in a free speech vacuum, I really don't care. Not to be dismissive, but I really don't care what your preferred pronouns are because I'm not going to use them and you can't compel me to use them. Now, I'm not going to be a dick on purpose, but I don't want to get into a trans argument because honestly, that's not what this is about. But I think that the government has absolutely no business telling you, like, let's say you got a group of people and they all want to use their preferred pronouns together and they're not bothering anyone, they're not compelling anybody. Everybody here is, being consensually identified, right? Who who the fuck is the government to tell these people what they can and can't do? Like, if they want to do things in their life and live in their world, who gives a shit, right? And that's protected under the First Amendment. Um, when it comes to free speech, this is both my opinion and the truth if you want to get into the nitty gritty. And this is where the hypocrisy comes in, Justin, because you're right. But really, both administrations were hypocritical on free speech just in different ways because there were people being deplatformed, and it came out that the Biden administration was directing the censorship of speech, and maybe not legislatively, but they were certainly pushing for the censor and silence of certain people and certain types of speech, right? And again, it came out and there was compulsion to do so. Um, Technically illegally, but I don't think anybody's been sued, but who knows? Maybe they will. We're a very litigious society. But when it comes to free speech, and this is the part that nobody likes to talk about, all speech is protected. Even the speech, and probably mostly the speech that you do not like. I'm often asked, well, so you support there being, I know YouTube doesn't like this word, but I'm going to use it anyway because I'm not a child. Oh, you support a Nazi parade? I don't support it, but under the law, I mean, you kind of have to let them do it. I certainly don't support it. So I think the ideas are awful, terrible, misguided, wrong, stupid, ignorant, and just fucking scoreboard. The ideas didn't work. They lost. They're wrong. But so it always starts with something that you think everybody can get behind, meaning like, yeah, yeah, let's go ahead. And I know it's different in Germany, and honestly, I kind of get it that it's different in Germany. It's a little closer to home. But the minute you ban one kind of speech, then it's like, what's next? It's a slippery slope and a certain one. So now that being said, you know, I've always said this about speech that you don't like. Let them have their parade, and the best thing you can do is pay them no attention whatsoever because they're doing it for attention. So if you ignore them, you take all the fun out of it for them. And if you don't pay attention to somebody, eventually they stop doing the thing. Or they scale it up and then get in trouble because then they start actually breaking the law. One or the other. So don't counter protest these idiots. Just let them have their stupid parade. Just ignore them. It's the best thing to do. I got to read your comment here, Justin. But I've made my opinions on free speech pretty well known. Oh, yes. I'm going to shout out Justin for a minute because Justin did bring up a very good point. And this is an idea I want to talk to him about, right? He I like this blew my mind when I saw a video he did on this. Um, he actually made the argument, and it was a great argument, that nobody actually wants absolute free speech because, believe it or not, they've done it before, and that was 4chan. And then they realized I'm butchering your synopsis. You should go watch it. Spur of the Moment podcast. I think it was on Spur of the Moment. He does this. I think there's a video clip on it, but basically the gist of the point that he makes is that like, yeah, 4chan was like, we're a bastion of free speech. You can say whatever you want, and then immediately terrible things were done. So they had to moderate 4chan, and then they tried it again with was it? I think it was 8chan. I think is what you said, and then the exact same thing happened. So I mean, to be fair, like I'm a free speech absolutist. I'll put it to you this way, Justin. I think that I like you're right. I'm not disagreeing with your point because clearly it's demonstrably true. But I think in terms of the government regulating that kind of speech, and of course, like you can't break the law per se, but in terms of just ideas and whatnot, I'm a free speech absolutist. And I think, yes, you should be able to say anything you want, but you have to live with the consequences of what you say. So I think there's some responsibility that comes with that. I just think that the government censoring speech is wrong, period. Whether or not somebody breaks any other laws with their speech is a separate issue, right? And obviously that's not cool because if you break the law, you need to pay for it. Without digging too far into that hole, this also goes into the precedence column, since if the Trump administration can effectively ban the use of personal pronouns, what's to stop a new administration from coming in and requiring you to list your preferred pronouns in an email signature? So just think, reflect. I forget who said it. Humility is the world's greatest superpower. And it certainly stops you from saying and doing stupid things a lot of the time, like shower thought. But like really good example of that is Robert Irwin. I know that Justin and I were talking about him. Um, Class act stand-up guy. I heard he's coming to Vegas soon. So if you're going to be in Vegas, I think in May 10th, I think is what he said. So free plug to Robert Irwin. He's coming to Vegas in May. You can check him out. I don't know at all what he's doing there, but um, one of the things that's become very clear during the current Trump administration is that many things are very unclear, but the need to create short term, the need to create short form content if you're on YouTube or creating any sort of media is not. And that's where our friends at Vizard.ai can help you out. Listen, guys, I make shorts for, I think there's only, yeah, I think there's only like two that I don't make shorts. So that'd be 14 podcasts. I make shorts and clips for 14 podcasts. And if you make content, you know that that is the most important, shorts specifically, but clips are also important for watch time and engagement. It's vital to your growth, especially if you're a small growing channel, you don't already have an established name or a really, really hooked gimmick. Like I said, the average intelligence podcast has been, we've been doing this give or take every week for 5 years, almost 5 years. I think it's like 4.5. I think it'll be 5 years in October. And we didn't see tremendous growth until we started doing YouTube shorts. And to be fair, when we started, YouTube shorts wasn't a thing, right? But when they rolled that out and started rolling with it to compete with TikTok, we absolutely did it. And our subscribership skyrocketed, and it helped our watch time out a lot too, because you can link it to the other podcasts. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that creating shorts takes a lot of time, right? And I have a background in editing. So if you've never edited a video before, it can be very daunting. Then I discovered Vizard.ai. Now, there's a lot of tools that are similar to Vizard, but I'm telling you right now, Vizard is the best. Not only does so the biggest thing, its biggest claim to fame is, let's say you have a podcast on YouTube. Well, you can take your podcast link, plug it into Vizard.ai's workspace, and their AI automatically generates short form within certain parameters, short form content based on your video. It cuts it together, auto edits it, and auto captions it for you. Now you can edit or remove those as you see fit, but it generates about 40 ish shorts right from your long form content. And not only does it generate that for you, easily export, it gives you a score out of 10 on how likely that clip is to go viral, and it explains why. And a newer feature is they'll even write a description for you using their AI engine. So you can literally just batch export a bunch of shorts with descriptions, and it's so incredibly easy. And the best part is it's not super expensive. Plus, there's a bunch of other really cool tools like a video translator, which auto translates captions for your video. That's a great tool. I've used it before. It actually saved my ass when I was editing editing a podcast episode where the interview questions were in English, but the answers were in Japanese because the interviewee did not speak English. So that was fun. But Vizard bailed me out, and I can't say enough great things about that. They are a proud part. I'm a proud partner with them, and you can sign up and try out Vizard.ai today by clicking the first link in the description. Make sure you use our link so that they know who sent you. So if you create content, you're going to want to use Vizard.ai. And Justin actually has used it, so he can speak to it. He says, "Yeah, you pretty much nailed it with my synopsis. I think the video is on my personal page. But that's pretty much the my thing about free speech is everyone believes in some form of moderation. Um, and then Justin says, yeah, he started using Wizard AI and it's been great. I've noticed your shorts, man. They've been very good. They've been exceptionally good. Now, what you can't see is that there's a light shining right in my face and it's drying out my eyes. Ah, but yes, back to Trump, where everyone wants to be. Probably the most recent example of quote Trump has no clue what he's doing is definitely the tariffs. And there was actually an update because I made this outline at about 2 o'clock is when I wrapped it up. And of course, it's changed. So I had to go in a couple times. And then it changed again after I went in and changed a couple things. Um, so tariffs, it has been mind-bogglingly frustrating for me because I'm constantly arguing with every side on this because everybody's had such an absolute stand when it comes to tariffs. They're either all bad or all good. And it's like, I come down on both sides on this one because it honestly just depends on which specific tariff you're talking about and what the overall strategy is. Strategy, not strategy. Strategy is not a word. Probably is on the Rugrats, but you can go through American history and you can find several examples of tariffs working really well and tariffs backfiring spectacularly. The real problem with this particular round of tariffs is part of arguably Trump's biggest problem, and that problem is mixed messaging. Okay, in the context of tariffs, the market likes stability. All right. The market does not like change. Even if it's good change, there's usually a dip when that happens because it makes people freak out because the market likes steady, predictable money. And Trump's unclear tariff plans are causing a huge amount of uncertainty, as we've seen over the past couple of days. But at the same time, if the strategy is to use these tariffs to coerce trading partners into lowering their uh, tariffs against the United States, you may not necessarily want to lead with that going in. But at the same time, by doing the rollout the way Trump has, retaliatory actions could likely be and have been initiated before a negotiation can even take place. Now, that being said, like I said, after I finished this outline, I then saw that Trump announced a 90-day, what would you call that? A 90-day delay on the reciprocal tariffs rolling out, except for China. He actually raised their tariffs. And I will tell you why I actually like tariffs against China as we go. I had a section, believe it or not, so this just kind of helps me prove my point. Um, and then it is also where so this tariff program, though, the more they talk about it, the dumber it sounds. I'll be honest. So how they came up with these numbers, it's become very clear that the reciprocal tariffs are hardly reciprocal at all. The administration, actually, I think this has been confirmed, but when I first read this, it was theorized. The administration appears to have simply taken the trade deficit between the United States and another country and then divided that number into the exports to the U.S. from said country to come up with their reciprocal tariff rate. Okay, first of all, this is grossly incompetent because the United States is the world's largest economy. So we theoretically have a trade deficit with just about every other country in the world. Some of the countries, I forget the name of the country, but it was a good example that was brought up. Like this is a country that we mostly import diamonds from, and it's basically a third world. It's an African country. I can't remember which one, but we import a lot of diamonds from that's pretty much all we import, I'm given to understand. And they don't buy very much from us because they're a developing nation. They either don't, they're either not there yet or can't afford US exports. So there's going to be an obvious trade deficit, but it's okay because we're getting diamonds from them. It's the net benefit. Um, but the Trump administration, to that point, fundamentally misunderstands what a trade deficit actually is. A very common comparison that's been being made over the last couple of days is that you, and basically everyone, you have a fairly significant trade deficit with your local grocery store. that relationship is pretty much universally one-sided unless you're a vendor. Um, but that's rare. So in that case, you will always have a trade deficit with your grocery store because they don't buy anything from you. But you're not worse off because of it, because in exchange for your money, you get food and stuff. Or in the case of Ron Swanson, you get food and stuff. What was that, Justin? I saw a clip that you guys are oh, I was gonna get to that. You're tariffing an uninhabited island like no people live on that strip. Yeah, them penguins got to pay up, bro. Yeah, I think that was probably okay. This wasn't even on my outline, but this is the problem with the Trump administration. They're okay. This administration simultaneously flip-flops, like again with the announcement that there's a 90-day pause on the tariffs rolling out. Um, Now, to be fair and given the benefit of the doubt, this might have been the plan all along, but given the rollout, I don't think so. It seems like the market freaked out and enough people called and enough countries called and says, "Hey, you're going to crash our economy. Let's not do this." Um, that he kind of backed down from it. But maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it'll come out. But I think the other reason I think that is because this rollout, oh gosh, I can never remember the name of the island, but yes, Justin, they put a tariff on an island that is inhabited by penguins. There are no people there, and the memes have been glorious. Okay, the penguins got to pay their fair share, Justin. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Now, as all this is going on, and really even since Trump's, election run before he got elected, before he won the election, I've been thinking a lot about the concept of free trade, and while the idea of it does sound wonderful, the fact of the matter is that it only works if everyone plays fair and by the same rules. So Trump does have a point here. Like a free trade agreement with a country that manipulates its currency, that steals intellectual property, and then sells it back to the country that they stole it from. Insofar as like I think Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, and he's right about this. Like, so you're a tech company and you export goods to China. Well, in the United States, you have patent protection. Well, China wipes their ass with it, like steals your IP, and then makes their own version of it and then sells it. And the thing is, you can't sue them in the United States if they're not, especially if they're not selling it in the United States, which a lot of things aren't. Huawei, for example, is a brand of phone that you cannot get in the United States. I don't know that it's. I think they've got a very high tariff, so they just don't sell those phones here. I don't know, or they might be tariffed for national security reasons. I'm honestly not sure, but it's a brand that you realistically can't find in the United States. It's a Chinese brand. But you can't sue a company that's not doing business in the United States. You'd have to sue them in China, but you can't sue them in China because they won't let you. Yeah. So yeah, for free trade to work, everybody has to play by the same rules, and you know they have to play fair. So while the vast majority of these tariffs are complete horseshit, sometimes tariffs can be and are absolutely necessary. Now, an example of this, which again, China, this is just a story. So my day job is cabinetry. I I own and manage a cabinetry and flooring store. Prior to, I want to say 2020. No, yeah, I forget what year the first Trump tariffs rolled out, but it was during Trump's first administration. During that time, or prior to that, I should say, well, not the vast majority, all of our cabinets that we imported came from China. It was universal. Everything came from China. When those tariffs hit, it was painful enough that these companies had to offshore their manufacturing away from China. And there were a few that got caught just repackaging. They were still being manufactured in China, and then they were just repackaging so that it looked like it came from someone else, but they got caught. And, you know, so to avoid the tariffs, most places immediately and some gradually just moved their production. This did two things. One, it got the stuff out of China. There was a price increase for a little while, like first for the tariffs and then just to cover the cost of changing manufacturing. But I was the only one that said this is going to be a positive long term. It's going to suck immediately, but it was kind of a universal suck because at that point, everybody who was importing cabinetry just about it was coming from China. So the whole market kind of had that price increase. And, it was felt. Honestly, it wasn't as bad as people thought it was going to be. I'll be honest, most people didn't even really notice. Like the bigger issue was when they had supply chain issues and lead times and shipping went up. That was a bigger pain. And I predicted it. And I felt so smart afterwards because I was 100% right. Because what I said is, okay, if they can't manufacture in China, they're going to manufacture in other places like Mexico, like Vietnam. I didn't know Thailand had levels of manufacturing, but they did. Um, Malaysia, for example, is where some of the stuff comes from now. South Korea, that's more flooring, and I think it was coming from there anyway, but you get my drift. Manufacturing moved, right? Particularly Vietnam and Malaysia. Those were in Mexico. Those were the big ones. This did so much good. For one thing, it sent jobs to those places, building factories, right? Because it wasn't just cabinetry, it would have been for clothing too. I guarantee you that more clothing factories built up. And I know for a fact they basically created a city in Mexico to manufacture these cabinets and plywood products. They basically built, it was actually really cool. One of the guys who worked for the company showed me when they were digging out the area, they actually came across some ruins and then they they did it and they were happy to do it, but they would have been required to basically make that like the equivalent of a national park, like a historical site. And it is there. You can see it. I can't remember the name of the town, but it's very close to the border. That was cool. So that was very exciting because they uncovered a fairly decent sized ruins. Thankfully, they didn't have to adjust too much of the building plan, but they did uncover it, so that was cool. Um, so eventually, pretty much all the prices went back down, and in fact, some decreased over. I mean, this is over the span of years, to be fair. Um, but I saw a noticeable uptick in quality, particularly the stuff that was coming out of Mexico. Like that was a pretty stupendous increase in price. So that was an overall net benefit. Nobody misses the Chinese cabinets. Nobody. Everybody's loving what's coming out of the other various places. And once everything settled down, like I said, we even got some of the prices to go down. So, and the truth is, I saw this today. I checked it and then it's been steadily going up. The Dow seems to be recovering, at least compared to what we've seen the past couple of days. When I checked it at 5 p.m. today, the Dow was up 7.8%. So it's not like a full, but the Dow is one of those things where, again, the further out you look, the better the picture is. Like there's always dips. Like we knew this was coming. And if there's one thing the American market is good at, it's saying, fuck it, we like money too much. Because it eventually recovers. Sometimes it takes longer than other times, but if you look at it historically, the market always trends up over a long enough span of time. So unless you're taking out your retirement right now, this just isn't going to affect you. It's just not. In fact, a lot of people are buying in right now because prices got nice and low. Um, But, kind of touching back on the tariffs, it's honestly debatable as to whether Trump can legally levy these tariffs, but that will be decided in the courts, which, while I love them, it can take a while. But this leads to another big problem with the Trump administration, and that's his administration's amazing ability to concoct extremely dubious legal theories or completely disregard or as it honestly appears to me, just misunderstand the Constitution. Like, ironically, for the party that wants to make everyone speak English, which is already a requirement for citizenship. They seem to constantly misunderstand a document that is written plainly in that very language. Um, like the whole Trump third term thing. All right, this is just he can't. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, well, can Trump run for a third term? I said, no. Well, what if he does? None of this, he won't be on any of the states' ballots because he's ineligible, because he's had two terms as president. It's done. He's done. He can't run again. And I know there's some convoluted BS about him being the vice president, except the Constitution also lays out that if you're not eligible to be president of the United States, you cannot be vice president of the United States. It's plain as day, but okay, so 22nd Amendment, which sets term limits for president of the United States, is no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. I'm going to say that again. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of president more than once. So, meaning, in the case of Gerald Ford, if you serve as like he became president after Nixon resigned, so if he served a period of 2 years or more, that counts as his first term, and he can only run one more time. So again, plain English. It's not even archaic like Elizabethan English. It doesn't say like I don't even know how you would say that. No person shall, having been elected to the office of president, do so more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president in such a manner for with 2 years, I can't even, like, it's so plain, I can't even BS this. And then there was Trump's attempt to end birthright citizenship, which again, I didn't want to be right on this because it was so stupid. But if you want to fact check this, you can go back and watch the episode we did where we live covered the first Republican primary debate, which Trump did not show up for. Still think that was kind of a bitch move, but I understand why he didn't do it. He may not be president if he had done it, but Vivek Ramaswamy laid out the exact same argument. So I know this is stupid because they just got this from Vivek, right? Or at least, actually, to be fair, Vivek probably got it from them because it was a lawyer who came up with this stupidity. Um, like I can't even believe how much they misunderstand the Constitution here, or at the very least, they're really latching on. Like this is a stretch. Like this is Armstrong levels of stretch. Um, and this also falls under the precedent problem because their argument hinges on their interpretation of the word jurisdiction. And as I've stated before, and I will probably state many, many times again, if someone is not under the jurisdiction of the United States, they cannot be prosecuted for a crime. So, that being said, are you sure you want to play that game? I leave it with you. It's so frustrating because their whole argument hinges on the fact that because someone who enters in the United States illegally is not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and yet your whole deportation excuse is eliminating people who broke the law from the country. Well, if they're not subject to your jurisdiction, then you cannot arrest them because they are outside of your jurisdiction. So, yeah, go ahead, play that game. Play that game and see what happens. But maybe you want to try something else, and maybe you want to argue with me, right? And the best way to do that is to start your own podcast, but maybe you just don't know how. Well, that's where Arate Media comes in because it's kind of become a bit of our specialty to help people start their podcasts at any point. Maybe you know nothing about this. Maybe you've already got an existing podcast and you just want to grow it and, join a like-minded group of independent creators and, just grow together. Our philosophy is a rising tide raises all ships. So, um, It's basically cross promotion, or we help you out with things like learning how to edit, learning how to make shorts. Like I said, see the aforementioned visitor.ai. Maybe you don't know how to edit video. Maybe you don't know how to live stream on YouTube. That's something we can help you out. We've helped other people out before. There's various methods you can use. Maybe you're just having even trouble just starting, just coming up with it. Well, RTA Media is here. We want to help you start your podcast. And the best part is we don't want a dime from you. And we can even hook you up. If you're starting your show, we can even hook you up with some sponsorship opportunities. And, we can be as involved or as little involved as you want. But at the very least, you'll be featured on the website. So can't hurt, right? So if you want to start your podcast today, use the second link in the description, which is a contact form that sends an email directly to me, and I would be happy to help you get started on your podcast today. And I just realized I was looking at top messages, not all messages, so I missed a couple. So he's also old as fuck. it's it's drum. I keep beating, but it's worth repeating. And Haley says, and with that, I'll say a famous quote: "Play with fire, you're gonna get burned." And I just feel like they're playing with fire. And they absolutely are playing with fire. But now we come now here's the soapbox moment for everybody, because this is the part that just this part pisses me off more than anything. And it was the one, even when I was in the voting booth, I was like still hemming and hawing over this issue because I just had a feeling, and I hate being right. But like I said, now comes the portion of the podcast that encompasses probably all the major problems that this administration has, all rolled into one issue. Issue. I don't know what an issue is. Sounds nasty. One issue, and that issue is immigration. Hardcore. So, in the mixed messages department, since even before he was sworn in, since he won the election, and even during the campaign, many officials, including Border Czar Tom Homan, God, I hate that term, Border Czar, and Trump himself, and not to mention many, many other people in and surrounding the administration, have repeatedly said that they want to go after illegal immigrants with an emphasis on felons and violent threats first, and people with already existing removal orders. And honestly, in a vacuum, I don't think that many people are opposed to that. But the problems started immediately when reports were coming out that ICE would be performing neighborhood sweeps. And just to be clear, ICE was saying this. They were putting out statements, and then, like, so ICE was saying they were going to hit a Chicago neighborhood, and then when they get there and didn't apprehend as many people as they wanted, they said, "Well, what? People were telling people." No, you told people, and then acted surprised when the news media ran with it. True, there were and still are news reports that seem to never tell the whole story, but ICE was putting these statements out too, and then they were acting surprised when people didn't line up to help them. Like, I just, they were also on record many times saying that they were going to be doing targeted arrests, sometimes in the very same interview when they said they were going to do neighborhood sweeps. The problem from day one was a lack of a clear message, and many people, many of whom have legal status, were left worried because of a lack of a clear message as to what they were planning to do, and plenty of past rhetoric when it came to immigration policy. Now, to be fair, there are several reports of people being detained, um, and I've noticed a trend. Like, I think my go-to example is there was an article from an ABC affiliate in Chicago that says ICE showed up to a school and were denied entry. Turns out it wasn't ICE. Turns out it was Secret Service who were looking for one specific individual who they were investigating threats made online against the president. So, not saying it's good, but it's bad reporting. And then something that happens over and over and over again. And shame on the news outlets for this, because when you sensationalize something and then something bad actually does happen, people don't believe you. So what a lot of articles will do is they'll say something to the effect of like, "Oh, this person was detained by ICE, and they have no criminal history." But then you go and read the same article and they talk about the person's criminal history. Like, now maybe they were lacking a conviction, and I'm not a lawyer, so it's a case by case basis. But generally speaking, they seem to be going after anyone they can get their hands on, right? And way outside of the legal bounds in some places, which I'll get to. Because there are several reports of people being detained for engaging in what many people would consider First Amendment protected activities. Some of these people hold valid green cards, not just visas. Because I understand I don't agree with it, but you can make an argument that a visa could be contingent upon avoiding certain things. But I mean, a green card holder, that's unless you're engaging in like active terrorism, that's kind of a hard sell for me. And perhaps the most disturbing report that came out is that as many as 75% of the people that were sent to that prison in El Salvador and those deportation flights that actually took off had zero criminal records. And apparently, many of them were simply apprehended because they had tattoos, I believe, including a somewhat famous soccer player from Venezuela who had spoken out against the government, hence why he could not go back. And because he had a tattoo, he was incorrectly identified as a gang member of Tren de Aragua and was sent to a prison in El Salvador. Now, let's look at this for a moment, specifically the El Salvador prison. Our government entered into an agreement to expatriate alleged criminals from a country in which they are not citizens of to another country that they are not citizens of. Now, I'm not saying that's the thing that rhymes with bravery, but it's it's real similar, right? Is pretty similar. You gotta admit, at least in a vacuum. I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm just saying that they could be cousins. Um, and many of those people, and actually, you can make the case that all of those people, theoretically, at 75% by some reports, have not received their constitutional right to due process. Now, before all you righties out there, before you tell me they're not citizens, they don't have a right to due process, the Supreme Court says fuck you because they just ruled that deportation flights could resume, but this is a big but. No one, I repeat, the Supreme Court said that deportation flights can resume, but no one can be removed without due process and sufficient time to defend their case, which tells me that that was not done with these particular deportation flights. And I'm not going to go too deep into the oh, what state was he from? The dad who got sent to the prison, and the Trump administration admitted that through a clerical error, they sent him there. But I've also seen another report. I need to do more research on it because I'd seen another report saying that in fact, they did have reason to believe that he was affiliated with a gang because of a prior court case. That's why I'm not going to dig too deep into that one. I don't know. So I'll get back to you on that one. But I had a feeling. Um, and then more on this is the part that probably irks me more than anything is it has been their hypocrisy when it comes to immigration policy as a whole, right? So for literal decades, I've heard people on both sides of the political aisle say basically, well, do it legally. Here's the unfortunate fact. Many Americans are under the impression that you can simply show up at a port of entry and just be let into the country to resettle. It's not that simple. But that's a whole other episode. Just know it's not something you can do that for travel, but like you can't and for many countries you still need a visa to travel into the United States. Um, but you can't legally work. There's a lot of restrictions, like and you can't just show up at a port of entry and say, "I want to live in the United States." You cannot do it. Justin says, speaking of the Supreme Court, have you seen people are calling Amy Coney Barrett a DEI hire? That's funny. I'll be honest. I actually kind of I thought she was a good pick. I did honestly, based on what I knew about her when she was confirmed. But what's like I said, that's a whole other debate as to immigration policy in the United States. But what is not a debate is that in the midst of Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration, or seemingly immigration, but we'll get there, his administration has also closed the door on many legal pathways to entry. Notice I said entry, not citizenship, because the pathway to citizenship is well established and quite narrow. Um, some of these pathways, if successful, or I'm sorry, some of these closures, if they're successful, because many are being challenged in courts, but if they were successful, it would leave a ton of people who are currently living and working in the country with full legal status to become illegal, uh, all with the stroke of an administrative pen. So, probably one of the most well, actually, no, it's not very well known. A shocking number of people don't know about this, but uh, one that covers probably one of the larger numbers of people. I know that there's close, I think 650,000 Venezuelans alone, and I think it's somewhere, oh, is it 200,000 Haitians? Like, I can't remember the numbers, but TPS, temporary protected status. So this was interesting. So it gave me another reason to hate Christy Nome. Um, for those of you who may be wondering, because in a vacuum, Christy Nome might seem like someone that I would like very much, and I suppose her COVID stuff, maybe. But then I learned that she shot her dog and a goat in cold blood, and I have a zero tolerance policy against hurting animals, so I hate that bitch, and you can't change my mind. So the fact that when she got hi, when she got nominated, I think she's Homeland Security Secretary. I can't remember. She's in charge of, yeah, I think, yeah, that's Homeland Security Secretary. So under the law, it is up to her as to whether or not. So we're gonna go down a bit of a rabbit hole here, just so you can understand. So TPS is a government program that was rolled out and basically allows specifically the Department of Homeland Security, but it's usually at the direction of the president, the executive branch, surely. Um, it allows them to designate a country that is going through temporary strife, whether that be, it can be for a number of different reasons, natural disaster, economic disaster, like military coups, violence, there's a bunch of reasons that can be listed. And essentially, what this does is it allows people who enter the United States on or before a certain date to apply for this status. Now, it's very important to understand it's not a blanket protection from deportation, right? You have to apply, you have to pass a background check. And what that does is it just protects you from deportation and allows you to apply for a work permit so that you can legally work and pay taxes in the United States during this temporary protected status. I believe it's usually or always a span of 18 months, but it gets renewed periodically. Now, before Biden left office, his Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, extended TPS for not just Venezuela, but also, I believe, Haiti, Nicaragua, um, Honduras, maybe. I can't remember, but I know Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and I believe maybe Afghanistan, and I think Ukraine. I don't know. He extended it for a few countries, right? Certainly Venezuela, because I remember that's been one of the bigger numbers, right? He extended it for another 18 months. Well, when Kristi Noem got into office, like that February, she not only rolled back that extension, but then decided to cancel the current designation. So basically, the original deadline would have been on April 5th, I believe, where approximately like 400,000 people would have lost their legal protected status. And it's not so much because everybody's number one argument was, well, it's temporary. Yes, I understand it's temporary, but it's based on the fact that have things improved in that country yet? And I think you can certainly point to Venezuela and Haiti and Afghanistan and pretty much everyone that has temporary protected status, at least that I've seen. I'm sure you can look at individually and make a case, but the point I'm making is that all these countries, you cannot say that things have definitely gotten better to the point that these people can feel like the vast majority of these people can feel like they can go back and be safe, right? And given rhetoric that was claimed, this is actually in the lawsuit because the Trump administration was sued by about six different organizations, and I believe in like 11 states, saying that the termination of TPS specifically for Venezuelans was basically all racially motivated. And their evidence was the fact that Christine Ohm didn't cite any possible examples or data to support her claim that conditions were better in Venezuela sufficient to end TPS protections for people, while the same administration was also making statements talking about how things were worse in Venezuela. No, I am not making that up. And this is also shortly after Nicolas Maduro. I don't know because I wasn't there. I don't know if he rigged an election, but it certainly seems like he did. So I don't know how you can say the conditions got better in a country where elections are rigged. Because I was going to say rigged, I wasn't thinking of elections. So I don't know how you can say conditions are better in a country where elections are rigged. Um, so there is that. Oh, sorry, I thought that was a new comment. And then plus just rhetoric spouted by Kristi Noem and Donald Trump calling, you know, basically lumping all people from Venezuela in with Agua is basically what they were saying. So the judge released in that case a 72-page report basically talking about how racist this decision was. And I don't think you can argue that in this particular case. It seems pretty tight. Fortunately, um, a judge has blocked that elimination of TPS, so it is extended indefinitely while the case is decided. Fun fact: this happened during Trump's first term as well, because they tried to do the same thing, and the case lasted so long that the case was dismissed under the Biden administration because they just extended TPS. So. Another example is the cancellation of the CBP One app, which, to be fair, was being was I think was honestly being overused by the Biden administration. But here's my problem. So the CBP One app was allowing people to make appointments to claim asylum, to try to apply for TPS, all these kinds of protections, certain parole programs, all while being outside of the United States. And then once they were here, it kept tabs on their immigration status and their location in some cases. So it was like if you needed to apprehend somebody, you knew where their phone was, right? So again, I don't think as long as it's not like the floodgates opening, I don't see how you can make a case that that's a bad thing. Trump's administration suspended the app immediately, like with virtually no notice. People that had existing appointments got them canceled. So some people are now stranded in Mexico. So there's that. They're also trying to or have ended certain parole programs that just allow people to be here temporarily and safely. And then they tried to end or suspend refugee entries for various countries, including Afghanistan, which I'm just floored by. So the Trump administration's whole thing on illegal immigration is like all you have to do is come to the country illegally. Oh, but by the way, we're going to eliminate a bunch of ways where you can come into the country illegally. There are even now Canadians that are going to cross the border and be here for more than 30 days now have to be fingerprinted. So there are a lot of Canadians that are, I'm given to understand, there are a lot of Canadians that are just saying, fuck you, we're not coming. And can't say I blame them. Can't say I blame them. It's so stupid. It's such a stupid, it's stupid. Like I can't make it any plainer than that. It's stupid. It's just so stupid. Like, Canadians, let me hear you. So yes, the immigration thing really irks the shit out of me just because it's like I was maybe on your side when you were at least, you know, claiming to be going after illegal immigrants, particularly, people with criminal histories and violent offenses. Oh, here's the other one I wanted to touch on. Um, I found this kind of interesting. I've been making this point. Oh yeah, that's right. Justin's mom is a travel agent, and she says tourism is down in your. Oh, I know tourism's down. I think Florida in particular really got hit because there's a lot of snowbirds that come down there, and now they're like, no. But here's the interesting thing. So I think the Trump administration is also really deportation happy because, okay, here's the example that I gave, and I think I was proud of this because I actually changed somebody's mind. So let's say that your prime, let's say we believe what they're saying at face value, and let's say that you want to. Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot. Yeah, one of the other things is they're checking people's devices, and Justin says them checking my devices makes me uncomfortable. I've said many pretty mean things about Trump on the internet. Yeah, and I mean, just in a vacuum, that's a blatant. I understand that you probably want to check for like terrorist stuff, but I don't know, maybe have a softer view of it. But anyway, so the point I was making, so like let's say we take Trump's border policy at face value, right? And let's say that the goal of this is to keep people safe. Well, so here's the thing. Like they're saying they're going after gang members, human traffickers, rapists, and all the like. And again, yes, I'm all for going after these people, but what's your end game? Because they're trying to deport some of these people, not necessarily arrest them. So let's say you've got in this particular case, let's say you've got someone that's hurt kids. And let's make this the worst example. Let's steel man this, right? Multiple times outside the United States. And now you find out this person's in the United States. If your goal is to protect the children, and children, not just American children, children, let's say you want to protect children like they claim that they do. And I do believe that. I'm not saying they're lying about that. I do believe Tom Homan when he says he wants to stop the human traffickers and, save children. I do believe that. I don't necessarily agree with some particular methods, but I don't think he's lying about that. I just want to be crystal clear about that. But let's say that you do, in fact, want to protect children, right? Then you would want this person in prison, not deported to another country where you have no jurisdiction over them and they can not necessarily be free to do what they want to do. But if you have a chance to get this person off the street for good, then and your goal is to protect children, then you want this person in prison. You don't want to deport them. You want them in jail. You want them in your jail so that you can, you know, control where they are and see that they, get a get a punishment that you feel is appropriate. Now, this means that certainly if they've hurt somebody in the United States, right? Because then they're well within your jurisdiction. Certainly you would want maybe to extradite them to the other country, right? If they've committed crimes outside the United States, but you want to be sure that they'll be prosecuted. And that gets a little dicey because then honestly you might be able to make a case for the Venezuelan prison, but I digress. And then the argument I get almost instantly is like, oh, so we got to pay for him? Well, I guess that comes down to what's more important to you as a society, protecting people or saving money on a prison bed. And honestly, if you want to spend less money on prisons, then prison reform's the way to go because there are private corporations that are making a huge amount of money on prisoners and it doesn't have to cost that much. It just doesn't. That's another argument. But in conclusion, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I voted for Trump. I'll admit it. I voted for Trump to end the insane government policies, to recover the economy, to protect free speech, to uphold the Constitution, and to reestablish faith in our institutions like the FBI, like the Department of Justice, like even journalism to a certain extent. And I'll be honest, I still hope these things can be done. But the way things are looking right now, it doesn't look good on any of those grounds. I mean, I desperately hope I'm wrong on this one, but the only thing Trump has done thus far for me is to remind me why I normally vote libertarian. And as of right now, I really wish I had voted libertarian in the election, but I fell for it. I fell for the panic. Hopefully things will change, but then you think about it and it's only April. It's been less than 3 months. And I mean, I just look at the chaos that's already been true. Some of it's not directly Trump's fault. Some of it is the media sensationalizing things. But as I've always said about Trump, he does not help himself. But in closing, I think the biggest issue with Trump's presidency is mixed messaging and hypocrisy. And if they can change those things, we might actually have a good, solid 4 years. But my major prediction right now, if they keep doing what they're doing, there's going to be a massive blue wave. Democrats are going to take back both houses of Congress, and he just won't be able to do anything. He won't be able to get shit done. Honestly, for 2 years, that'll be kind of awesome. Um, but then when a Democrat wins the presidency and they control both houses of Congress, that will be a fucking disaster. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm hoping the Democrats take one house of Congress so they can at least be a stopgap. That's ideally what I'm looking for, but we will see what happens. But I'm telling you guys, um, Democrats are coming back. They're going to have major victories in 2026. Um, yeah, it's going to happen. And I will be glad if I can't turn around and say I told you so because Trump turned things around, but I don't see that happening. But thank you for enjoying this episode of the Average Intelligence Podcast. Hopefully, I didn't bore you too much. And hopefully, you're a little bit less average. Um, Yeah, hopefully, you're a little bit less average and a little bit more intelligent. Um, this one, maybe. What's that, Justin? My parents deleted all of the anti-Trump shit off their phones just to be careful. Oh yeah, I agree. The blue wave is coming. Don't expect JD to win shit. Well, that remains a lot can happen in 4 years. A lot can happen in 4 years. That goes both ways. But like I said, thanks for enjoying this episode of the Average Intelligence Podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you can be notified of our live streams and clips coming up. Please watch those clips and old episodes. We're trying to get that watch time up so that we can get monetized. And keep subscribing if you haven't already. Like I said, hit that bell notification so you get notified when we go live. Normally Wednesdays at 9 o'clock, but sometimes we have to change it for scheduling reasons or we miss it by a little bit, but close enough. And check out the other podcasts on the RTA Podcast Pantheon. Check out Visor.ai if you haven't already. And if you want to start your podcast, submit that contact form. We'll get you rolling. Thank you, everybody. Once again, hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, let us know in the comments. If you didn't, let us know in the comments. Either way, let us know in the comments. YouTube likes that